Hey guys, I'm Tim Kotzman here with CarolinaHODL. How's it going today?
Just excited to be here, Tim. Thank you for having me on. I'm a huge fan of your work. I really love the aspect where you have some bigger people in this space on, like the Jeffs and Ryans of the world. But you've also given a voice to some of the smaller plebes, and it's really cool to get to know their background, their life experience, and hear some of their journey into Bitcoin. So I can't commend you enough on the content that you've already brought and excited to be here and share my story a little bit.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that and really excited to have you. Going down the list, you're a veteran, you're a Liberty maximalist, you're Bitcoin class of 2021. So we share that in common. We're in the same class. And you're an MSTR bull. So we could go down the list or start wherever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge Bitcoiner. I felt like I got into the game late, but I really think a lot of my life experience kind of led me on this path. Growing up in South Carolina, my parents were both entrepreneurs and really emphasized the importance of having freedom, having autonomy over your own time, going out and not being afraid to take risks to pursue what you want. And that's overall my biggest goal is to have autonomy over that time. I think someone said it best when they said Bitcoin is definite scarcity, but time is indefinite scarcity.
Mm.
Um, you don't know how much time you have, so you need to capitalize on it. My parents were both tied up into real estate. My dad owned a grading business. He eventually sold it and came to work for my mom. She had a title search business. So grew up doing very well, kind of reaping the benefits of their business success until 2008 hit. And it really made me think harder. I never really had a reason to think about money until then, and I kind of saw how our lives changed significantly, and especially looking back and when I understood the mechanisms of what went on during 2008, some of the over leveraged games that were played, and then the people who were playing those games, as soon as the system got stress tested, the government just came in and bailed them all out. All those executives got huge checks. Their life didn't really change at all. But I saw my father and my mom's company get wrecked. I know we went from taking vacations and not living too high on the hog, but we were very comfortable. And then we went from eating chicken and rice. My dad's business eventually went under, and he had to go back to grading, which I think was a great lesson in how to handle volatility for me. He never complained. He obviously there was some BS things that went along with why 2008 happened, but he just took the bull by the horns. He went back to grading. He did what he needed to do. He was up at 6 a.m., wouldn't get home from work until the sun went down. And I think you can tell people how to handle adversity or how to handle volatility in life, but it was a really great example. He showed me how to handle when life knocks you down. I mean, all you can do is pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. I think failure is a good thing. I think we should sometimes put ourselves in positions where we're farther out on the risk curve and we have the ability to fail. I think if you, one of my favorite quotes is comfort and growth seldom ride the same horse.
Mm.
If you're too comfortable, you're not growing as an individual. You're probably not growing personally, financially, spiritually. So everything in my life has been a little bit more out on the risk curve, and everything that I'm proud that I've ever done has been something that I was scared to do, especially getting into Bitcoin. And I'll go a little bit into my military background, but I think both seeing that, what happened with my dad, then obviously the volatility of going through the military, it set me up perfectly to be on this path. And once I started going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it was like, this is my type of investment. It's a little bit further out on the risk curve, but it has the capability of changing your life financially. And also, I just didn't want to be put myself in a position where the government had the ability to wreck the value that I've created. Because I think that's all money is. It's stored energy, it's stored value that you've already done the hard work and you've created. And when I saw what they did in 2008, and it really hit home in 2020, and like I said, in 2021 was kind of where I started my Bitcoin journey, because I just wanted to opt out of the system. I was tired of playing their bullshit games and letting a few people in Washington have such control over the value that I was creating. I saw someone break down the numbers, but when they increased the dollar supply by like 20 or 30% in 2020 and 2021 over the course of those few years, I mean, it eliminated tens of millions of people's lives work of the value that they created, and they just printed it. And at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, do I want to play this game? Do I want to let people have that autonomy over me? Or do I want to take that control over my own life and my own value? And that's really what led me to Bitcoin. Once I went down that rabbit hole, and I was like, whatever happens, at least I feel comfortable knowing I'm making a bet in an idea. We can call Bitcoin a network. We can call it a city in cyberspace. We can call it a commodity. But really, what it is an idea.
Mhm.
And more people are buying into that idea that we don't have to let other people have control over our value. We can take responsibility and we can take accountability of it ourselves, and then trust as this situation with the dollar not only continues, but also accelerates. And we can go into why I believe it'll accelerate. Uh, I have control over my money, and I think more and more people are going to look for an exit out of this system that's been created really since 1971.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Onramp. Bitcoin custody is evolving. Both self custody and single third party custody come with significant risks and trade offs. Onramp is pioneering a new standard, multi institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure, adding fault tolerance and redundancy to your setup. OnRamp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated, cold storage, multi sig vault, guarded by three independent, institutional grade custodians, none of which have unilateral control. Multi institution custody removes the technical, mental, and physical burdens of private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. To learn more, schedule a consultation with the OnRamp team. Go to www.onrampbitcoin.com. Do you want to go into your military background?
Yeah, absolutely. I joined the military pretty immediately after I got out of high school. Um, when I started looking at joining the military, average was always kind of a dirty word to me. So I wanted to do something tough that would really test me. Going through school, I was a pretty average athlete, played high school sports, but wasn't great by any means. I was a pretty average to a little bit above average student, but I had never done anything to really test myself. And as a young man, I wanted to put myself through that just to really see what I could do. So I looked into a few different things. I looked into going into the Navy SEALs. I actually went up and did the physical assessment test to join the SEAL program. Did great on all the running and the push-ups and the sit-ups and pull-ups. And then I got into the pool with a few of the guys that were trying to do it. And there was some collegiate national champion in the pool. There was a bunch of other guys that were just blowing me out of the water. So I decided that either I need to get way better at swimming really quickly or go a different route. And that's when I decided that I wanted to go into the Army and try to become a Ranger. So that's what I ended up doing. It was, um, I always tell people, is the best time I never want to do again.
Mm.
It was brutal, and especially going through things like RASP, which is the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. and then later on Ranger School. It, like I said, it really prepared me for my journey as a Bitcoiner, because especially in those selections, they want to get you out. They don't think the cadre don't want you to be a ranger. They want to see who is willing to go through hell to achieve that long-term goal. I think in RASP, and I'd gone through basic and I'd gone through airborne school at this point, uh, but we classed up with somewhere around 300 guys going into our RASP class. And along the way, we lost a little over 200 of them. I think we ended up graduating with like 87 or 88. Um, it was incredibly difficult. I think everyone hits a point of failure in selection courses like that, and they know how to mentally fatigue you. They know how to physically fatigue you. They've really got breaking the human spirit down to a science. I
Okay.
remember the the first week, all we did for like 12 to 15 hours a day would do ruck drills where we have these unspecified time hacks. They tell you there's a specific amount of time you have to unpack your rucksack, lay it out, dress right, dress, and then always right before the last pe few people finish, uh, they cut it and then say you failed the time hack. And then you have to stand there and hold a 85, 90-pound ruck over your head until your arms start fatiguing to the point people are just dropping the rucks on their head. So we lost a lot of people week one. Week two was even worse. We go out to what our hell week is. It's called Coal Range. I think we lost 50% of the class in that week. They were doing all kind of things. I think one of my favorite stories from Coal Range, it was the third or fourth day out of 6 days out there. We had been out in the freezing rain. It was, I think, early December when we were out there. It was freezing rain the whole time. We were miserable, running off. I think they have to give us like an hour of sleep at least, but they would also break that up into 15-minute increments sometimes. So they would put us to bed, wake us back up to go do something. So we were getting to the point where you were delusional, your body was broken, you're dying. You're not even taking the time to change out of your wet and freezing clothes when they put you to bed. You're just laying and like cuddling with the guys next to you to try to get some body heat. But they came in at about 4 in the morning. Our fire guard came in and said, "Hey guys, the cadre wants you back outside." And basically, we just told him to fuck off. We're like, we don't care. Get out of the tent. And he walked out, and we heard the cadre yelling at him to get us outside. And he came back in and he was like, "Hey guys, they're pretty serious. They want us to form up outside. Once again, we don't care. We're warm for a little bit. We're sleeping." And then the cadre said, "Oh, you don't give a damn about what we have to say? That's fine. That's fine." And they chunked a bunch of CS grenades, which is riot control grenades, in this huge tent, which we're staying in. A panic just ensued. Everyone's flooding for the door, trampling each other. One guy actually hit the middle pole and basically brought down the whole tent on everyone. So we have this collapsing tent. We have 80 something guys in it and just a bunch of riot control gas. So that was basically drinking from a fire hose in terms of learning how to handle volatility and learning how to expect the unexpected and just kind of roll with the punches the best you can. Uh, Similar to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy, I think you have to have a eye on the long-term goals that you have, because that volatility will shake you out. I think one of my best stories that I kind of relate to, especially MicroStrategy, where it'll shoot up and you'll feel great about it. You'll feel like we're on a straight shot to 1,000. You make life-changing money real quick, and then it pulls back like 50%. I was here in March when it did it. I started buying MicroStrategy in September of 2023. I think my cost basis was around 350 at the time, or 35 split adjusted. And then when the ETFs really kicked off, I went all in, started buying calls. Actually, when I first started buying my long-term leaps, the price went from around 650 at ETF approval. And then over the next like 2 or 3 days, they went down to 400. And I'm like, all right, how much conviction do I have in this asset
Hmm.
about the long-term growth? Because now I'm down. Either I'm going to cut my losses or I'm going to double down. And thank God I had conviction in Bitcoin and Sailor's strategy, and I doubled down, and it has paid off tremendously. But we had the same thing happen where it ran from 400 up to 2,000. And then immediately over the course of the next month, it came back down to 1,000 and chopped for 6, 7, 8 months. And it's tough not to sit back and think about what have I done? Even though I was still significantly higher as far as my portfolio was concerned than when I started, I couldn't help but think of the number that I was at when we got to 2000. And once again, you have to have an eye on the long-term plan because I think post split, it's 200. And looking at where we are now, I mean, 200's way behind us. And I felt euphoric at 200 at the time. The story I was going to tell you was right after we got back from Christmas break. Uh, I think we were in going into our 6th week in RASP. Uh, we thought we were basically home free. We had finished the first few weeks, which is really the phase they try to weed everyone out, and then they start to teach you about what it means to be a ranger, try to develop some of those skill sets. So when you go into a ranger battalion, you can kind of hit the ground running. So when we got back from Christmas break, we're like, we're gonna have a few more weeks. It's gonna be difficult, but they're done with all the mental games. They're done trying to break us.
Hmm.
But nope, that first day when we got back, they knew that we had been home with our families for a week. We had been probably eating a little bit too much, probably drinking a little bit too heavily. And they were like, we're going to capitalize on this and see who still really wants to be here. So that morning, they played all kind of games. They popped the fire alarm on us at 1 a.m. They made us move the entire barracks outside. So we were carrying bunk beds and foot lockers for hours. And then finally we went on this ruck march. And it was about the best test of conviction of do you want to be an airborne ranger or not that I think we had during the entire course. It was a free release ruck march, so it wasn't in formation, but the entire time, two of the cadre is I'll say walking, but it's like a jogging pace right behind you. And if you ever fall behind those cadre, you're eliminated. You fail the ruck march, and you can only have two major failures. They call it a major minus. You can have only have two of them and still graduate. So we're sprinting with these 85 or probably 80 to 85 pound rucksacks on, sprinting to do everything we can to keep up and not fall behind those cadre. Similar, they didn't tell us the route. We just had to follow the leader and try to keep up. So we get out to the back gate of Fort Benning, which is a typical ruck march course. And we're like, okay, we're gonna turn around here and head back. We can do this. Nope, they just keep on marching right through the back gate. So then we get out, and I think it's around 11 or 12 miles out to Fryer Drop Zone that we just did at an extremely accelerated pace. People are finally getting there. We're able to drop our rucksacks for a little bit, take a knee, drink water, have a little bit of rest. And we all assume like that was brutal, but we made it through. There's no way they're going to make us go back at that same pace. At this point, um, everyone who was still surviving in RASP had already been through hell. Like these guys really wanted to be airborne rangers. No one broke down or quit on the ruck march. They were like, this is just kind of what we have to do. Um, but at that point, they gave us about 2 minutes to rest and they said, put your rucks back on. We're running back. And that's when you saw people really start breaking down and start losing confidence in their ability to do this rigorous ruck all the way back. They were like, why am I going to put myself through this again when I know I physically can't do it? We had a few people quit then and there. The rest of us loaded up our rucksacks, started basically running back. As we were running more and more, I think we had another handful of guys just step off to the side of the road. say, I can't do this. I can't do this another 12 miles. Is a grueling pace. I'm breaking. Like, I can't handle it. But what they failed to realize, and what all of us failed to realize, it was just the mental games they play. We went a few hundred yards and turned a corner, and the buses were sitting there waiting on us. They
Mm,
just wanted to get us to the point of that physical and mental exhaustion and then see who had the conviction and who wanted to be an airborne ranger bad enough to push through. And they were willing to go until they were just physically broken. That's what I always told myself. I'm not going to quit. Either they have to drop me or they have to take me out in a body bag. And I think that example was the best. That ruck march was the best example of that mentality. And it was tough seeing some of those guys that had made it so far. They had completed 5 weeks of absolute hell. Really, they had 3 weeks left to go until they hit what would have been a huge milestone, what would have been something they prepared a year or two to do. But just because they didn't have the conviction and they let a short moment of volatility kind of shake their faith in themselves, they never got to put on a tambourine. And when I put on that tambourine, it was the most fulfilling thing I think I've ever done in my life because I knew all the effort and all the work that it took to get there. And that's kind of what I compare it to what we recently saw with MicroStrategy, and we had a flood of new investors coming in, especially from that run up from September where we were sitting in the low hundreds and we opened at 5:30, I think a week or two ago, and everyone's like, we're going to the moon. But going where I think we're going to the moon, but it's going to be a bumpy ride. And we pulled back from 5:30 to closing at around 3:40. And that shakes a lot of people out if you haven't done the work. You don't have the conviction required to handle this volatility. So I think some of the adversity I dealt with early in life set me up well for the military to be able to stomach what they did to us and keep my eye on the overall goal. And I really think that volatility of spending 4 years in the Ranger Regiment, deploying multiple times, going through really difficult training exercises, going through multiple difficult schools. I mean, they demand the best from you at all times. That is an organization where there is no easy period. The cadre said it best that going through RASP and joining the Ranger Regiment is the easiest thing you're ever going to do. So I really think you have to have that kind of conviction and belief in yourself to be a continued part of that unit. And I would say the same thing in terms of the volatility that comes along with investing in Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. You have to have a lot of conviction. You have to understand. I think there's three components. I think first you have to understand how broken the fiat system is to really be to even do the work on Bitcoin. Then you have to understand how Bitcoin solves some of the issues with the fiat system and allows you to opt out of some of the games they play. And then you have to do another 100,000 hours of research into how Saylor is utilizing this asset and not only solving a problem that he had with all this cash on his balance sheet, he's taking that problem and turning it into an engine. And I mean, he has seen some extreme levels of success with utilizing that kind of Bitcoin growth engine and applying it to a company that was really struggling before. So, um, yeah, the military was great, and I really think it was a stepping stone that kind of led me here and really gave me the ability to handle some of this volatility that we've seen over the course of the past year.
how did you first hear about Bitcoin?
Um, Through plebs on Twitter, to be honest, it was I think I first heard about Bitcoin when I was in the military, and that was pretty early on, but like most people have the reaction to Bitcoin, I laughed at it. I said that was magic internet money. The people who are in early are going to dump on the people who are coming in. So I didn't really think anything of it. Um, I heard about it again in 2017, really didn't do the work. I also think you'd have to have a need to look into Bitcoin because in 2012, 2017, I wasn't doing, I was a private in the military or I had just gotten out of the military. It's not like I had a ton of capital to invest. So I wasn't really worried about debasement at that scale because when you don't have that much money, you're not worried about preserving the purchasing power of that money. I got into investing as I was in college. I had the GI Bill to put me through school, but I also worked full time. Was setting aside some money and really trying to grow it. So I think I benefited from being an investor in 2021, but I also recognized that most of the market felt exceedingly overpriced. And I recognized that that was a mechanism of this excessive monetary debasement that was going on. But I looked at Bitcoin and I basically said, hey, that's a result of this bullshit fiat system. There's no way it can last. I sold a lot of my positions and went bearish, which I did well in 2022 when everything came back down. But I was still of the mindset that everything was going to come back down. Everything's overvalued. I had some Bitcoin at that point, but it was more to ride the wave. And I thought it was a cyclical asset. But it really took me deep diving into how the Fed and the Treasury handle these stress tests. And every time we have a stress test, they have, I mean, we've gone from back in the 70s when Volcker was able to kill inflation, and you have all these different levers and buttons to pull and push to handle and try to keep basically a nice equilibrium in the market, to now Powell has one big button and it says print. And he uses that button often. And if the system gets stress tested again, we're going to use that button. And I think looking into the sustainability of our debt right now, I mean, we are approaching or just recently broke $36 trillion in debt. Pre-COVID, we were spending about $4 trillion a year. After COVID, that went up to six and a half. And you would think that after COVID got resolved, they would scale back a little bit on the government spending. But if we know anything about the government, once you give them the capability to spend, they're not going to say, okay, that's passed. We'll give it back to you now. Right now, that number's 6.75 trillion. We're running a $2.4 trillion deficit on a yearly basis. Like the printing's going to continue and it's going to accelerate. So that's really my understanding of that. I came from a precious metals background. I invested in other equities and was like, okay, I'll turn around and buy gold or silver with that because gold's been around for thousands of years. If everything's overvalued and kind of crashes like I think it might, gold will still stand up. If the dollar dies, gold will still stand up. And it's interesting to me coming from that background. Once I started doing the work into Bitcoin, it has the exact same properties as gold that's made it stand the test of time, except gold just kind of happened into those properties
Hmm.
of durability, of portability, fungibility, divisibility, and scarcity. I mean, it's a rock that's shiny, people like it, and it's hard to get. Bitcoin was specifically designed to meet all these properties. And in my opinion, it does a significantly better job than gold does. Even talking to Bitcoin guys, talking to gold bugs, we agree on pretty much everything until it comes to Bitcoin. They see the problem, but they're like, well, you can't hold it in your hand. Peter Schiff says you can't use Bitcoin as a hammer. Why is using it as a hammer make it more valuable as money? I mean, I think Bitcoin is the perfect design because it came out of that post 2008 crash where
Hmm.
Satoshi sat back and said, "We have a real problem." I think gold's already being hoarded by the governments of the world. We have no way to hold them accountable for what amount of gold they do. All these huge gold reserves that the U.S. says they have, When's the last time we got an audit? I mean, we're operating on a trust system, and if there's one group of individuals that I don't trust, it's those people who make up our government in Washington, D.C. So I'm all about don't trust, verify. I have my Bitcoin, I can verify it. And that's why I believe eventually we'll go to a Bitcoin standard because as this excessive printing and monetary debasement continues, the people are going to demand some accountability for their government. I think we've already gotten sick of it to the point where people recognize on a ever growing scale the problem. People just haven't really done the work yet to come to the solution. But I think, as we've seen with the growth of the Bitcoin network, more and more people are recognizing that there's a problem, and more people are doing the work required to opt out of the broken system that is the fiat monetary standard.
Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Stampseed. If you're in cold storage, you know how important it is to protect your seed phrase. That's why I recommend you head over to stampseed.com and check it out for yourself. This seed phrase storage device is one solid piece of titanium. There are no loose pieces, and you can hammer your seed phrase in letter by letter. When you go to stampseed.com, use promo code TIM15 for a 15% discount across the website. That's TIM15. How did you first find and start interacting with people on Twitter, and how do you use X, now known as X, on a daily basis? Like, how do you view that, and how important is that?
I think it is extremely important. I'm sure my girlfriend is going to laugh at me when she sees this interview because I'm on X probably an unhealthy amount, but I've gotten so much value from, and a lot of these ideas I came to on my own from, I did get the Bitcoin suggestion from X, and a lot of people, especially in the depths of the bear market, you had all these Bitcoiners like it's going to a million. It it's so underpriced right now, and they were laying out their arguments, and it makes a lot of sense. And that sent me on my own rabbit hole of reading stuff like the Bitcoin Standard, the Fiat Standard, Broken Money by Lynn Alden, all these great resources to teach me more about not only the Bitcoin standard and Bitcoin as a system, but how broken our current system is. And then when I set up the account CarolinaHODL to maintain a little bit of anonymity and just because I wanted to get into this marketplace of ideas and discuss something that I was incredibly interested in. And I think it's brought so much value to me. I think Ryan or Ben said it best. Investing is a solo sport, but research is a team sport.
That's Ben Workman right
You get,
there.
yeah, that is Ben Workman. He drops quotes and he drops knowledge all day. So and it's so cool on X where you can find a group of like-minded individuals that, like I said, they come from different walks of life. They have different skill sets, different things brought them into Bitcoin. But we have a very similar ethos in where we want accountability over our own money. We want our freedom. We want our self-sovereignty that comes with Bitcoin. Um, and I've learned so much more than just my initial deep dive going down some of those rabbit holes from meeting people like Ryan and Jeff and Ben and MicroStrategy. And I mean, there's hundreds of great accounts that really do great deep dives into Bitcoin, and you can learn about things like the technical aspects of the network. That was one thing I'm far from a super techie guy. I think after all the work that I put into Bitcoin and understanding the network, I tell people if I was to explain some of the intricacies in Bitcoin to someone like Bitcoin Sessions or Wicked Smart Bitcoin, they would probably be like, "Well, this guy's an idiot. He's done enough to." It's like when someone's learning a language, he
Hmm.
can understand what I'm saying and he can kind of converse back to me in a choppy method, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But if I go talk to my normie friends about Bitcoin, they're like, when did you become a computer genius? So there's
Right, right.
I'm a lot farther than when I started, but I definitely still have a ways to go. But yeah, I've just gotten so much value from, and at first I wasn't really contributing much, but I think as you join these communities, like the irresponsibly long MicroStrategy community, and you see some of the other work that's being done, you just kind of find your own niche about where can I contribute. Getting out of the military, I think it's kind of cool, even though it's a very different situation. Getting out of the military, I really missed that camaraderie that comes with you're all there doing the same thing, handling some of the adversity together, and that really forms a strong bond because you may not always agree, you may not always like each other, but you're here for the same purpose to accomplish the same goal. And even though I've haven't really met, I talked to Ryan a good bit. I've met some other friends that I talked to on X. Obviously, I have the pleasure of speaking with you here today. Um, but even if I haven't met you in person, we're all here for the same reason. We
Hmm.
all have the same goals. We all have the same ideas. And I think this marketplace of ideas, if you capitalize on it correctly, it can enhance your conviction so much. And that's what I really encourage the newer people to Bitcoin or MicroStrategy to do is do the work where you will have that level of conviction. I see a comment a bunch where, oh, the newer or the older guys in Bitcoin and MicroStrategy don't have to worry as much because they're so far above their cost basis. I'm like, what are you talking about? The older guys in Bitcoin, if you're buying Bitcoin at a few hundred or a few thousand, like, do you know what they had to go through to get to 100,000? I mean, that was a death pit of volatility. You'd go
Yeah,
up to 2,000 and go back down to 300. And if you have the conviction to hold it, like they deserve every bit of this benchmark that is 100,000.
absolutely.
But in my opinion, I mean, I bought MicroStrategy for the first time in September, like I said, at 350. Now we're past 350 post split. The people who bought in at the 400, $500 level and they're worried because now we're back to lower 400s, upper 300s. I firmly believe that there's another split that's going to occur sometime in the not too distant future. And you'll probably be coming up on your cost basis just the same way I am. But you have to be able to stomach that volatility. This thing is not for the faint of heart. If you want to see something where you don't stress, for one, don't over leverage yourself. And that's something I couldn't be more emphatic about. I think this is a great long-term opportunity in both Bitcoin and MicroStrategy, but a lot of people are going to get wiped out along the way using tools like short-term options, using tools like leverage. I mean, these tools are like fire. They have their place. Fire can provide warmth, it can provide comfort, and it can also burn your house down pretty quickly. So you need to understand what you're doing if you're utilizing these tools. But I recommend everyone build conviction, do the work required, and then keep your eye on the long-term goals that you have. Don't don't focus. I think Bitcoin's going to 1 million, and then I think it's going to 10 million. I think everything in between uh, 1 million and where we are right now is just noise. So do the work required to have that kind of conviction, and it'll help you significantly in holding the assets like these.
Absolutely. Um, where can people find you online? And I'll throw it over to you for any closing thoughts you might have.
Yeah, really my only platform is on X. We can find me at CarolinaHODL 21M. I encourage people if you have any questions about my life experience, my takes on MicroStrategy or Bitcoin or anything else, please reach out. I love talking to people. I've met so many friends through the X space that have similar interests and have similar goals. So I love exchanging ideas, talking to anyone. I'm happy to be here because even in real life, I'll talk nonstop as long as people will let me about Bitcoin and MicroStrategy until people tell me to shut up. They want to talk about college football some more. Um, so I think in closing thoughts, uh, first off, I'm a faith-based person. I think time is a blessing given to you by God. And more than Bitcoin kind of gets religious at some point, but I think my faith is what keeps me going. And then I encourage everyone to look at Bitcoin and MicroStrategy for what they are. They are a tool, and they are excellent tools that can be utilized to change your life. I think what's going on with both of them is it's the most fascinating story in finance, maybe in the history of finance to watch. And I can't wait to see how it plays out. But I think at a certain point of your Bitcoiner journey, you need to look back because you're going to have financial freedom. You're going to have that sovereignty that you got in this for. You need to look at not only continuing to do work to acquire more Bitcoin in the fiat mines, you need to look at, well, how can I utilize this tool to enhance my life? How can I use it to gain back sovereignty over my own time? That way I can spend time doing the things I love, making your life better, spending the time with family and friends. And I think Bitcoin and MicroStrategy are both excellent tools to do that. I would encourage everyone, like I said, not to get over leveraged. I'm a firm believer. I don't think I'll ever sell my Bitcoin. I will sell some of my MicroStrategy, probably to buy some Bitcoin. Uh, but I'll also sell it to improve my life, to take back autonomy over my own time and get to spend more of my life doing the things that I love. So I would encourage people to look at Bitcoin less as a religion and something that I'm going to spend the rest of my life hoarding as much as I can of, and really look at it as this is maybe the best tool in human history to improve my life, improve my own time, and then eventually give back to your community. I think there's very few things as fulfilling as using your hard work and some of the resources that you've acquired to give back and help other people on their journey. I know a lot of people, it may not be monetarily, but a lot of people who are doing far better financially than I am have spent some time with me teaching me the mindset of investing and really how to look at the market and how to look at life. And I think this has been incredibly beneficial for me, whether it's in school, the military, or my investing journey. So as you become a little bit more seasoned investor and you're doing well financially, you're going to have a lot of people look up to you that want to be where you are. And I think the best thing you can do is turn around and share some of that knowledge and insight that you've acquired over the course of your journey, and give back to those who are hungry and motivated and kind of want to get to where you are. So that's my main points. Don't over leverage. You have an incredible long-term opportunity in front of you. Add value to your life and then give back where you can.
CarolinaHODL, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, brother. It was a pleasure talking to you, and can't wait to see where it comes out and where you go, continue to go with all your content, man. It's been a pleasure watching you and finally getting the pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.